It was Martin Luther King who once said, "Every man must decide whether to walk in the light of creative altruism or in the darkness of destructive selfishness." Hi everyone, Alexis Brooks here from Higher Journeys, and I'm delighted that you've decided to join me on what I'm going to call the last episode of the year short segment of Conscious Commentary. Every man must decide, must make the choice whether to walk in light or in darkness. That is a quote that I used by Martin Luther King at the beginning of the chapter of my book, Conscious Musing. The chapter is called "The Dichotomy of Consciousness and the Precipice of Change." You probably heard me talk about this idea before, this idea that when the dichotomy of reality, the dichotomy of our lives reaches its peak, that being heightened altruism as well as division and destructiveness, we are probably on the precipice of some major paradigm shift. Well, I dare say, even though that book was written back in 2014, I have never seen such a dichotomy as this, or a scenario play out as in this year. We don't need to go through what this year has meant and is still showing us all over the globe, what it has meant to us psychologically, emotionally, physically. This has been a paradigm changing year, a paradigm changing season, a time of reflection, a time of questioning and curiosity, a time of heightened fear. And we've been asked and told we must not let fear rule. Someone once said to me, "Alexis, fear is a disease, a dis-ease." How interesting that in this year of a pandemic, fear is at an all-time high, it seems, and yet the fear is due to what we're told is a disease. Fear is a disease. We have a choice to annihilate the fear and thus annihilate the disease wherever it may stem from. These are interesting times, journeyers. I'm sure you all can agree. Some will say this is a time of evil and we're in a spiritual war. Perhaps we are. But I have said from the beginning, and I still stand by this, that we are in fact being asked to evolve. I believe that this time almost denotes a mass shamanic initiation, to be able to look fear in the face, look the monster in the face and say, "You're not real." Rather than hide from it, run toward it. And invariably when it does, and many people that have taken ayahuasca journeys and other shamanic type journeys in that altered state, when they are confronted with the big hideous monster, they make a decision, a choice, to either walk in creative altruism and frankly run toward the monster that seems inevitably going to destroy them, or to run away and run perhaps into the darkness. But in that journey, so many report making the decision to run toward the monster, and when they do, somehow it magically disappears. Is this what all of this means? Is this what all of this has meant? And what will come in the future? These are questions we can't answer. But I do know that if this period of time in our history has taught us anything, it is that we do have choice. We always have and we always will. I'm sure that next year will give its fair share of more tests, if you will. We can call it a litmus test. More journeys. More of a lot of things. But at each stage in this path, we do have the choice to live the way we choose to live. If you recall my conversation, this was toward the start of the year, with Daryl Anka, Channel for Bashar, a very powerful episode that he gave an interview to me on the heels of a proclamation that Bashar made about what was to come. And what Daryl said, really to reiterate what Bashar said in his message, is to put yourself in the eye of the storm, where all the clouds are swirling around you, the storm is swirling around you, and the calmest place that you can be is in the center. We all know that in the eye of a tumultuous storm, the calm is at its nucleus, at its core. But in order to get to the calm, we have to run right into it, just like in that shamanic journey. I'm going to ask if you haven't seen that interview, and by the way, this is the all-time most viewed episode of Higher Journeys I've done since Higher Journeys' inception, that with Daryl Anka and the message that Bashar gave back in December of 2019. Watch it again, because Daryl said some things. There were some nuances there that he said when the two of us were speaking that would intimate some of the things that he felt we may be facing going forward into 2021 and beyond. The light is there. It is in the midst of the shadow. The calm is in the midst of the storm. The magic is in the midst of madness, perhaps right at its center. Lots of messages, lots of metaphors, and lots of information that I believe the universe is showing us each and every day. But we've got to be able and be willing to get quiet, to not proffer an opinion, whether silently or aloud, but rather take in the information that the all-wise, omnipotent universe is giving us. In silence, I truly believe the answers live. Just like in the midst of the storm, right at the center is its most calm. And that's why we must, regardless of what is to come in the weeks, months, and perhaps years ahead, that we can navigate ourselves in the middle of that storm. There have been some beautiful things that have happened to many of us on this planet in the midst. I call it the magic in the midst of the madness. I'm no exception. I've had my ups and my downs. I've had days where I've cried, and I'm sure you have too, or screamed, wondering, what is this all about? What is this for? But on the heels of that, there may be another day where the blessings will be in excess, and you'll say, wow, this really is the dichotomy, isn't it? So we embrace the days that are good. We don't know what the next day will bring, but in reflecting on the good, I do believe we can magnetize more good toward us. That's the message that I want to leave you with. A couple of things before we sign off. I'm looking at the clock, and I'm going to keep this short. By the way, I hope you're enjoying your holiday, however you're celebrating, in whatever way this year. I know it is quite different. And so I am going to keep it short so you can get back to doing some hopefully some celebrating, or maybe some time in solitude. As I mentioned, this has been a year for me of, I would say both, but the highs have definitely outpaced the lows for me, and I am so eternally grateful. And I've asked the question, this has really been a breakthrough year for me in terms of career advancement and friendships that I've made and all sorts of things. Why now? Why in the midst of all of this? I think there's another conversation there, but nonetheless, I have counted my blessings, and they have been in excess. One I'm going to tell you about right now. I did announce this on my Facebook page, but I figured I'd share it with you during our Conscious Commentary episode. I was so humbled and honored earlier this year, and I'm so glad that I'm finally able to talk about it. I've been hinting at it for quite a few months, that the History Channel, I'm sure many of you in the States and perhaps abroad are familiar with the A&E Network's History Channel, known, of course, for Ancient Aliens and Curse of Oak Island and other great, what they call unscripted documentary series or series. Well, there's a brand new show that's going to be debuting, premiering January 5th, Tuesday, January 5th, at I believe 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and it's called The Proof is Out There. Well, long story short, I was contacted and pursued quite vigorously, I might say, back in August by the History Channel. I was very surprised and very honored about being on the show, being featured on the show in quite a few episodes as an expert and analyst on a host of really anomalous, incredible, inexplicable phenomena. This is based on video footage of things that have happened all over the world. Some stories you may be familiar with. Many, of course, I was, and some I wasn't, some assignments that I was given. But the bottom line is I graciously accepted their invitation to come on the show. And I can't get into too much because I don't want to be the spoiler on what the episodes will actually cover. As we get into the season, I can talk a little bit about some of the stories that I covered. But Believe me, and this is only the way the History Channel can do it. I have to give them a shout out. I think they're just brilliant at really bringing what heretofore subjects were not talked about so much into the mainstream. So I have to give them credit for that. And this show is no exception. The Proof is Out There is really going to dive deep and broad into some of the phenomena that we would say is inexplicable. And there'll be some footage that what we're going to do is meet out whether it's real or faked footage. Nonetheless, I'm excited. You'll be able to see me on the boob tube in a few more households here in the States. And I'm still trying to figure out where history is distributed in other parts of the world. And I'm fairly sure it is. But for those of you here stateside, The Proof is Out There, featuring yours truly, along with a team of experts and its host, who is former CNN anchor and investigative journalist Tony Harris, who is fantastic at what he does. He will be leading our team through this labyrinth of footage throughout the season and beyond. So Tuesday, January 5th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on the History Channel, yours truly will be a part of that team for The Proof is Out There. So there's the announcement, the big drum roll. Very excited, and thank you, History Channel, for seeking me out and twisting my arm. And I also want to give a shout out to the executive producer, Miguel Sancho, who is a brilliant. I was really lucky to get to work with him throughout this whole process. Miguel is multi-Emmy award winning. He's a news guy. He's done a lot of stuff, and I believe has won Emmys for 2020 and primetime. And he's made a decision to dive into territory that he wasn't that familiar with. So we had a great time over the course of this process, really talking about some of the things, the dynamics, what we would be covering, the things that we talk about here on Higher Journeys. So shout out to you, Miguel. I look forward to working with you more in the future. We are talking about season 2, by the way. Now, that's that. I'm going to put my book down, Conscious Musings. I hope you'll go get it. I can't believe it's been since 2014 that book was published. Now, to end the show, I want to give you an entree to the very last show that we'll be doing for the year. This will be on December 30th, my annual forecast by the numbers with none other than brilliant numerologist Sharon Milstein. Sharon and I have been doing these end of the year forecasts for the following year for 8 years now. It's hard to believe. Now, if you saw last year's show, that would be forecasting for 2020. You will undoubtedly know that she nailed it. I can't tell you how many times I've watched that episode, going back and looking at the things she said. Although, like many who were getting feelings that something big was on the horizon, she couldn't name it, but she knew that it was going to be big. And thus, here we are. Well, going into what is considered in numerology speak, the 5-year, I'm not, of course, going to spill the beans as to what she talked about, but it's full, believe me. There's some good stuff. There's some more dramatic stuff. It's going to be bumpy. Buckle up. I don't think any of you are going to be surprised at that. But what she had to say, as always, is important and words worth really, really thinking about. So I hope you'll tune in for our show on Wednesday, December 30th. That will be the final Higher Journeys full guest episode of the year with Sharon Milstein, numerologist. We're going to be talking about 2021. Last but not least, before I let you go, will you please subscribe? I always have to remember, sometimes I even put a little sticky note with big letters, subscribe, because, this is not why I'm coming on to the program to talk to you about subscribing to my YouTube channel, but it does so help us get the word out about Higher Journeys and beyond. YouTube loves it. It helps with the algorithms and the numbers. And of course, if you like the episode, we always appreciate a thumbs up. If you don't, well, don't leave anything, but we would appreciate your subscribing. Help us get the word out about Higher Journeys. All right, everyone, I'm going to sign off for Conscious Commentary for 2020. Conscious Commentary will indeed see you next year with lots more to talk about, I know, as the days and weeks and months unfold. We're just going to take it day by day. And in the interim, continue to breathe. Breathe deeply. Breathe with love. And know that you are loved. I love you, that's for sure. I'll talk to you soon.